podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Ospreys Eyrie.
Welcome back to the Ospreys Eyrie, the Ospreys fan pod. By the fans, for the fans. We're back for another episode. Not in London, but we are indeed back at home this week. Back to a full squad. Much like the Ospreys, is not something we could boast about this season, that we're back up to a full squad. Joining me this week, as always, is Yeston.
Yeah, I'm in Cardiff actually, so I'm expecting merger talks to hit the news tomorrow morning. But yeah, we are. I think the Ospreys are back in Swansea this weekend.
So what you're saying is we're merging with Cardiff Central podcast as we speak.
Well, that's not up for me to decide. That's obviously a decision that has to go upstairs.
And of course, joining me as always, or coming back, it's been a few weeks now, is Darren. How are we, Dar?
Hello, fine, thank you. Yeah, back and back with some exciting news. If things are led to believe.
Indeed. Thanks to everyone who downloaded, listened, shared it last week. We had a really good week. Some really great feedback, and it always helps when you're winning as well. So the more we can talk about wins, the more we can keep providing you with some top quality stuff. So let's move straight into news. Then it's not something we normally do with an Ospreys pod, because there's normally just injury news. But two bits of news since we last were on air. Ospreys have announced the signing on loan of Lucid prop James Kenny from Exeter Chiefs. 24-year-old has made about 30-odd appearances, scored 2 tries, and was part of the Premiership Cup-winning squad. Speaking to some Chief fans, told he's very underutilised. He's a big boy. We know what Toby's like. He likes a dynamic Lucid and scrummage well. So, do I expect him to get lots of game time? Probably not. Look at the extent of Gar Tom's injury. But I wish him all the best, and I hope he settles in. Are we happy with that signing, Dar?
Yeah, happy. It's better to get players in now than just waste your time and just pick any old player up or something in the middle of the season. Get them in now, settle them in now, and when they're required to join the team, either starting or on the bench, they're ready and they know what to expect.
Yeah. Yes. Happy with James Kenny?
Yeah, he seems like a good prospect from what you hear from Exeter supporters online. It'll be interesting to see if he becomes the next Jordan Lay, but
the Phantom.
I think he might have a bit more game time, but
yeah, I can definitely see.
Depends on the injuries. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I think a few Exeter supporters have said they might not. They should have used him a little bit more. So yeah, it's an intriguing signing.
Look, as we've spoken about this week, nothing will make up for stealing our, angry New Zealand boy in Ethan Roots, who annoyingly is absolutely killing it in the Premiership, and I wish him all the best.
He's causing chaos, and it's just he's a brilliant player, and like you said, wish him all the best, but wouldn't have minded him for an extra season or two down here.
This is why you don't get attached to good players, because when they go, and then they just go and prove their worth, and then you're like, oh look, we're missing out on such talent. But
it's a real, I think it's a real kudos to our scouting team, whoever was Mike Ruddock and his team, to go out and identify these players, because he's brought over. I look at the 3 that I always bring to top of my head are Sam Underhill. Picked him up at Cardiff University, got him into Bridgend, brought him down to the Ospreys. He has, a fantastic run. Gets spotted by Eddie Jones, who asks him to go sign for an English club so he can play for England. Right. Then you've got the other one would be Tyler Ardron. You bring Tyler Ardron over as Elton couple of seasons, goes over to the Chiefs, and now is at Castor. He's literally today's just signed a new contract to 2026. And then look at Eastern Roots. He spends 2 seasons. He was really raw when he first came over. We barely played pro rugby at all last season, and especially the second half of last season. He was just so good. And then it is no wonder that Exeter came in for him. So wish him all the best. But yeah, James Kenny, depth is key to our Challenge Cup run, as well as challenging for that top 8. Speaking of squad depth, though, probably the biggest news to come out of Ospreys this week is that the Ospreys have engaged in a partnership deal with former Pro 14 side and current Currie Cup side Toyota Cheetahs, and have completed the loan signings of 3 players. First reported by Wales Online, the Ospreys have signed scrum half Ruben Kruger, Marnus van der Merwe, and very fast winger Daniel Kasende on loan. Now, this was just hearsay at first, but this morning, the official Toyota Cheetahs Twitter account tweeted out saying, as part of the partnership, 3 Cheetahs players have joined the Ospreys on short-term loan. Daniel Kasende, lightly fast winger, Marnus van der Merwe, who made his Pro 14 debut against the Ospreys back in 2018, and Ruben Kruger, a South Africa under-20 scrum half. Both, going on to say quotes by General Manager Dan Griffiths of the Ospreys saying partnership, allows players from both sides to experience different cultures and different rugby competitions, with Cheetah CEO Ross Van Reenen commenting the same. This tweet was quickly deleted, though. Whether that's just a timing issue, Cheetahs have just tweeted out at the wrong time, but it does sound like this is happening. I think a lot of people are putting it down to just when the visas are secured. But it does seem like it's happening. I'm going to ask Yestin first. What was your thoughts on, or what were your initial thoughts on this? Did you think, oh no, another merger? The Bokspreys are coming?
Well, that'd be interesting. Imagine Ospreys merging with a side in South Africa. Would they play somewhere in the middle? But yeah, well, yeah. I didn't really think of that straight away. Because I think Y11 have got a bit of a track record of looking in towards clubs. I can't remember if they got a stake in the Melbourne Rebels or not, but there was rumours of that a couple of years ago. They obviously got a 25% stake in the Hurricanes in New Zealand. So I think they're always looking to explore different options. And the Cheetahs obviously fallen out of the Pro 14 as it was. They still play in the Challenge Cup. They were internationally at some point last season. And yeah, if they can continue this, build on this partnership, you could have some young Welsh players playing in the Currie Cup, which I believe is a fairly decent standard. I think it's certainly probably an upgrade compared to what we've got over here with the Welsh Premiership. And then any proven South African player that might be at the Cheetahs, maybe they want a chance at the URC, then they could come over to Wales.
Yeah. What do you think? 3 South African players in on loan. Good thing, bad thing?
I'm going to try and be positive because I've been trying to get my head around it all day. And I've had so much things going on in my head all day. It's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it's brilliant that we're trying to expand to different leagues and everything and bring overseas players in. Just looking at the Kruger one, the scrum half, going back a couple of weeks, I can't remember who said it, but I think it was you, James. I think you asked the question if Ruben Morgan-Williams, was this his time to shine in the number 9 jersey. And obviously Ruben, I think Kruger and Ruben are the same age, I think. But obviously, competition is always welcome. Why not? Because you get the best out of players if you got more competition. But do you both think that we got Luke Davis, we got Cam Jones, and we got Ruben Morgan-Williams in that scrum half position? Do you think that bringing Kruger in, as well as already having 3 decent scrum halves, in my opinion, to the region, obviously adding more players in is good, but do you think that will put a dampener on Ruben, thinking, yes, finally I get a chance to put the number 9 jersey that I've been waiting for years, being second to Rhys Webb for years, and now hear the news that Kruger's coming in and potentially, who knows, might replace him or may, add to him pushing himself more to become that number 9? Or do you think Kruger will come straight in and just say this number 9 jersey's mine? Or Ruben will panic and think, right, why are they bringing in another number 9 when this is my time to shine?
I think that 9 shirt is Ruben's for now. I don't think that Kruger coming in and I would just caveat this is all an if. Nothing confirmed on the Ospreys side has come out yet. By the time this podcast goes out, that could change. By the time we broadcast next week, that could change. If Kruger does come in, I feel it's very unlikely that he goes straight into starting lineup, right? We've got 4 scrum halves. I'd say he probably goes in at number 3. I think Luke Davis is still in that number 2 spot. You need 4 scrum halves for the season. It's a position where we probably have been a bit thin on the ice before. I don't think Ruben's in danger of losing that scrum half shirt. I think he's had a decent enough start to the season, justify keeping that shirt. It's the same with any player coming in. They've got to earn that shirt. And as much as we rag on like Luke Morgan or other players, they're in that shirt because they deserve. Both teams them to have deserved it. So it's all well and good. Gloucester signed Mickey Young from Newcastle on a temporary injury cover. He comes in on the bench because he's injured. I only expect Kruger to come in, probably play sporadic bench appearances, and then definitely play some Challenge Cup rugby. Especially I think you'll see a lot of South African boys, if they do come in, play in that Lions fixture away. The boys will be perfect to go in that extended squad over to South Africa. And if Ruben keeps up the way he is he challenging for a Welsh spot as well? So there's going to be opportunities there. So I definitely don't think that any of the 3 are coming in and taking a jersey off another player. They've got to earn that. Yes, are you of the same mindset?
Yeah, I think with Kruger, I think I'm probably in agreement. Going to go on a bit of a tangent here, because if Marnus van der Merwe's first game was against the Ospreys in 2018, if that was out in Bloemfontein, I can remember the commentator having a bit of a field day with the pronunciations of some of the Ospreys players that day, which included Luke Prince at fly half and Hanno Dickinson on the wing.
That was, yes, I believe, and I'm looking at it right now.
That's his debut. Then that's one for the history books, mainly because of the commentator.
We won 27-26. And was that the Justin Tipperick quick hat try?
If it was the home game, then it isn't. That was the one where the Ospreys led for about a second and won. If it was out in Bloemfontein, that's the commentary one.
Yes, I believe it's the one out in Bloemfontein.
Yeah, that's the Tipperick quick tap at the start of the second half.
That is yeah. Can I just say, looking at them, looking at the lineups that day, Joseph Weber was a scrum half at hooker, and a certain Sean Venter at 9. I wonder where he went after that.
Tian Swentpole was at 12 or something. Some magical weird thing happened.
Yeah, Tian Schumann. Yeah, Dries Swentpole was at 12. you had, what a good Sharks team, man. JP Dupree on the bench, Jasper Wiese on the bench. Oh, this is a fantastic. Well, whereas we had Martin Fear and Sam Cross.
I'm just going to say this could easily turn into a Cheetahs podcast right this
Yeah,
sec.
this is now a Cheetah
Uh,
Stand
um,
podcast.
back to where was I? I was talking about the. I think the scrum half is probably the same. I think Ruben's probably done enough to keep hold of that shirt. I think Luke Davis has offered some encouraging performances as well. But I think we might see a bit of Van der Merwe in the URC. Nothing against Ethan. I've forgotten his name again.
Cameron Jones.
No, the hooker,
Oh,
Ethan.
Ethan Lewis.
Lewis. I'm mixing up Ethan Lewis and Lewis Lloyd. That is, I really want to say Ethan Lloyd, but it's Ethan Lewis. So I need to sort that one out for myself. But I
You're
think,
thinking of Evan Lloyd, the
yeah,
Cardiff hooker.
it's just too much rugby going on. I think we need to stop. And I think nothing against Lewis Lloyd, but obviously he's a very young hooker, and we saw there's a couple of errors with the lineup when he came on Friday. Nothing against him. I think it's probably a bit more of a structural issue there. But I think we probably see Van der Merwe in there just for his experience. And I think getting a winger in as well, where there was a few injuries as we saw, Friday. I think Toby Fricker had a little knock, and we've obviously lost Giles. We lost Giles after the Connacht game, and Proffer went off for HA against Zebra. So I think in terms of positions, they're probably positions we did need to get some depth in, although I'm not sure how much they'll get game time, but I think we might see one or two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's a lot of talk going on at the minute about maybe who we'd send out there. Lots of maybe someone like Lewis Jones, Tom Florence going out there. Because Cheetahs have got some quality out there. Ruan Pina's out there. Francois Stain is in the
He's
coaching
not still
set.
playing.
I think he might be in the coaching setup.
Oh, right.
And then, of course, my friend and yours, niche Ospreys player Rainier Bernardo, the man who I don't even think he ever played, did he? Or did he make one appearance?
Well, he might have made. Oh, I really want to research that up. I'm not too sure.
Really, really nice bloke. I've met him once or twice, but we are going to move on. We could talk about Cheetahs and Sharks, the Bokspreys all night. Absolutely one for the title, the return of the Bokspreys. But let's look back to the first Friday night game of the season, of the regular season. The Sharks at home with a little star caveat, the Twickenham Stoop. Now, none of us made it to the Stoop. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it up with work and stuff. But looking at the feedback on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, everyone had a really good time, it seems. I'm going to say the attendance was around 7K. The conspiracy theorists will have you know it was 4 men and a dog. And that is all the attendance chat we're going to do. Strictly experience-wise, everyone enjoyed. The players looked like they had a great time. And really big thanks to Harlequins for lending us their gaff for the night. Came back at the actual game though. The game finished 19-5 to the Ospreys. The Ospreys trailed after 3 minutes after a lovely backs play. Put Buthelezi in the corner where Kerwin Bosch failed to convert. After that, it was a pretty dogged game. A lot of handling errors, a lot of turnovers. Where I find it. Saw Jack Walsh go over after a sustained period of pressure in the corner. Some questionable refereeing decision disallowed Ethan Lewis a try. The Ospreys kept going on with Walsh going over eventually after Owen Watkin pass. Ospreys then lost Owen Williams to what seems like a hamstring injury. Both Duncan Jones and Toby Booth have said that this is precautionary only. We are yet to see the extent of that. Walsh moves to 10 and Max Nagy, the man in form, comes on. Nagy then charges down a kick in centre field, takes the ball 65 metres to score. Walsh converts. On 37 minutes then, Jancy van Rensburg is shown a yellow card for a forearm to the face of Harry Deeves. Not that Harry Deeves was bothered. He went off. He did go off for HIA, but passed it. Ospreys then capitalised this on 39 minutes. They got a penalty, which they took quick. Jack Walsh put a lovely kick over the top, which the Sharks backline failed to regather. A kick through by Kieran Williams saw him score on 39 minutes. That was the last point of the game. No points scored in the second half. The Ospreys weren't able to procure a bonus point, but did deny Sharks any points from that game. Darren, overall performance, are you happy? Are you sad? Sad we left the bonus point out there. How are you feeling after that Sharks game?
Overall, happy. We won another game. Can't fault it. And quite sad that we didn't quite get 4 tries, but a win's a win. And I think Mark Jones is looking like he's implemented his defence style, because obviously we didn't concede at all in that second half. But then on the flip side, we didn't score in the second half. But if Mark Jones can keep up that amazing defensive effort all season, I think we'll do quite well defensively against bigger, better teams. Not dissing the Sharks, because they had some big attacking threats all over the place. But overall, happy. Max Nagy doing Max Nagy things this season. If he carries on, if he is Welsh qualified, to chuck him in that Wales squad. But happy with the win, and may the winning streak continue against Glasgow this weekend now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you summed it up really well there. Really great performance, and probably the opposite to what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, where we've seen a bit more free-flowing rugby, going through the hands, where actually we've seen proper defence from the Ospreys. Harry Deeves made 19 tackles, but I think he only missed 2. He was everywhere on Friday night, as was everyone. I think everyone put in a shift. Yes, who stood out to you individually?
Well, I can now declare the James Fender fan club is open. That is the first thing I'm going to say, because for a young second row to come into the side with injuries and players away, he looked like he'd been playing the game for about 10 years alongside Rhys Davis in that second row. So James Fender being one. I thought Garen Phillips had a good night in the scrum. I think it was a bit of a worry at first when he was starting, but it seemed like him and Tom Botha did well, and Botha did a really good job on the Springbok loose head. Deeves, as you mentioned, he was everywhere. Just like a yellow cap, just blowing around the field everywhere. And Morgan Morris, as we mentioned, very, very, very consistent. And then, Ruben Morgan Williams, I think that was the best he's kicked tactically for a good spell. And as you mentioned, Walsh, who came from fullback to fly half, and he performed very well, even if the Owen Watkin pass went about 57 feet too high for him. And then Max Nagy, as we mentioned last week, he's going to be another player that's going to be leaving before we get the real luxury of him.
Stop doing this to me, Destin. He's not leaving. He'll never leave.
Pick him up. And he was good. He acted like a bit of a goalkeeper and then ran in from 60 metres to score. And I think the one thing for me was, I think Booth mentioned it post-match, was there was a young group of players playing out there and they were disappointed not to get a bonus point. Mm-hmm. And from Ospreys of old, if you're thinking, just happy with a win. And especially what the Sharks did to us a couple of years ago, where they just turned up and Botha Chamberlain walloped everything from about 40 metres out, and the Ospreys lose by 14 points, and everyone's thinking, how did that happen? So to get the win was a real positive, and to see the reaction after it, okay, they did have chances in the last few minutes to wrap up the bonus point, and a missed pass to Nagy, who looked to have a good chance of scoring in the corner, could have gone to hand, but to take the victory is good, and to see the overall reaction was disappointment not to take the bonus point is a real pleasing factor.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. I have two rants actually, because I tried to justify this on Rap on Monday. Okay, winning ugly is still fucking winning, right?
I agree.
The fact that we're sat here talking about a win that we're proud of that didn't include a bonus point is really, really good. Okay, because I've been sat in the stands after we've lost the fucking Southern Kings. We've been battered. I've been watching scrum final. We've been battered 58-3 at Munster. Okay, you know the joy and elation of getting over a hump, right? Which we have been against every South African team, right? We have not beaten a South African team until last week, right? If you don't count the Kings and Cheetahs, right? We have not beaten the Stormers. We've drawn with them in a game we should have won. We have not beaten the Lions. We have not beaten uh, the other ones, whatever they're called.
Bulls.
The Bulls, that's the one, right? I remember being sat in the stand when we won 8-7 against Ulster after Ali Davis used his head and charged down a kick, right? That was one of the happiest moments of me as an Ospreys fan, okay? As was Friday night. Because that team went out there, 23 years, the average age was of that team, right? And they went out there and they put in good performance. James Fender looked like a right knob, right? And there's that hit and rip he did in that second half, and then there's that one where he just picks a man up and just drags him back like he's a nightclub bouncer, right? James Fender looks like the nicest human in the world. He shouldn't be that horrible to play against, and I fully agree. And I tweeted this off the Irie account that Fender is one for the future, and someone has pointed out that we are building some real heft in that second row. Reece Davis again, who I think was lucky to avoid a card. I'm not denying that, but he was everywhere again. He's just such a horrible fucker, right? He just looks like you let the air out your tires or something like in your car. But yeah, right. Morgan Morris, right? Not enough is talked about Morgan Morris in the media for me. Okay, you know, a lot of the talk, and quite rightly so, because he played really well, but Johan Lloyd at the minute, because 10 is a bit of a problem position for Wales. 8 is also still a fucking problem position, right? Because Faletau is going to be undercooked going into Six Nations because he'll probably be back around January. You've got no other natural 8 that showed any signs of Wales potential. So in having to fill in with Aaron Wainwright, who I really like. I love Wayno. He's a fantastic player. Brilliant for the Dragons, brilliant for Wales. Not a natural 8. I think he works better at 6. You've got, who else could you play? Tame Basham? No, not really. Doesn't work as an 8. Probably best as your impact player off the bench. Looking at Cardiff, you've got obviously Faletau out injured. Seb Davis, not an 8. You've got Shane Lewis-Hughes, not an 8. Thomas Young, not an 8. Right? Morgan Morris is the only natural 8 in Wales. I'm not even going to count Ollie Griffiths Dragons, right? Because he won't be fit. And Jamie won't mind me saying that because he won't be fit. Right? Morgan Morris is consistent in his carrying, his passing, his angles that he runs. Look at that angle he made on that break off that line. Right? He does that every week. Why teams don't pick that up every week, I just don't know. Right, he led from the front on Friday. I was quite worried that when Moggs went into that game as captain, that it did the Warburton thing where it detracted from his overall performance. And I don't think it did. I think he brought him a measure of calmness and clarity. And he spoke to his players. He's a popular guy in that group. The fact that not enough is said about him outside of Osprey circles is a fucking crime, right? And I honestly think that, if he played in the English Premiership, there would be articles written on him every week. There'd be, why isn't he in the Wales squad and things like that? Because it is the Dombrand thing, right? He plays exactly like Alex Dombrand, right? Maybe without the offloading game. It's really, really annoying that Morgan Morris isn't talked about now. And I'm telling you now, if he doesn't get picked in the next Wales squad, I will not be surprised if Morgan Morris doesn't renew his next contract at the Ospreys. I know he's probably got a few years left. I think he's got 2025, maybe. Right? But I would not be surprised if he just says, "Do you know what? I'm going to go play in France, or I'm going to go play somewhere where I'm more appreciated."
You wouldn't blame him for doing it either.
No, and I don't. If any Ospreys fan turned around to me and said, "Can't believe he's ditching us," well, I'd be like, "No," because he's playing in a system where he's not appreciated by the national team selectors. I personally think he will get picked. There's no way you cannot pick him in the next World Cup squad. We don't have enough players. Right, and I will have this rant every week if I have to, right? Because if he performs well against Glasgow, he performs well against Scarlets, goes into that Christmas period with credit in the bank then. Because Scarlet's game is make or break. Because there'll be Gatland will be at that game. He always does. He'll try and make an effort for that game. Right? If he doesn't impress there, I don't know when he's going to impress. There's not a lot of players over the last few years. Probably Reece Davis was the last one we hyped up a lot, and he's been in and out of the Wales squad. But Morgan Morris, there is no one who deserves it more this season. I think Cam Winnett has been fantastic as well. Morgan Morris has just been a level above for now 2.5 seasons. Okay, so Gatland, if you are listening, and I know you are, pick Morgan Morris. And Ospreys, I know you're listening, right? Just give him a lifetime contract, please. Give him whatever you want. Give him a house, right? I don't care. Whatever it takes to tie that man down to a lifetime contract.
Even give
Right?
him shit or something like.
Yeah, give him shares. I don't know. Make him coach, right? Honestly, do what you can to keep that man in an Osprey shirt.
Otherwise,
My rant
otherwise,
is over.
otherwise, Exeter's Chiefs will come in and nick another Osprey from us.
Oh no, right.
No, not another one.
I can't know.
No.
You're a nice club. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Glos-
go Gloucester.
Gloucester or Bristol.
No, not Bristol. They'll ruin him.
I just
Right.
just want to pick up on an earlier point from James about games being close and you having a really ugly win, like 10-7 or whatever like that. Just want to say that when the Ospreys were quite poor last season, it was kind of a bit of the same thing where they're trying to blend someone in attack. And then obviously they switched it all up from Montpellier away. And look what happens. And they continue that for the other two European games. And look what happens. Watching 10 minutes worth of scrums at Welford Road in freezing cold conditions in the middle of January was probably the highlight of the Ospreys last season. It was certainly for me as someone that went to that game. So if any supporters complain about not getting a bonus point or anything like that in any game across all four regions with the budgets and things like that, then well, you just need to give your head a bit of a scratch, really, because come on, it's hard enough for the best of times. And if you're complaining about getting nabbed an extra point, okay, it might cost you the end of the season, but with the budgets and everything, you're like, oh well, just take the win.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I think that goes for all four regions. I hate the Scarlets, right? It's not a fact that I hide. And Lee, I know you're listening. You will never get this from me again. I was quite happy when you won on the weekend because it's no fun when you're getting punked every week. You're low on confidence. You're going into the Welsh derbies with nothing. You know, it's great that you've got that win. You know, they're going to be few and far between for our regions this season. You know, I'm sorry, Cardiff. I can't see you getting anything in Europe. Not with your squad. Lack of depth at the minute, and your injuries piling up. Dragons are just you've got a horrible run of games, but you've got to take any positives that you can. You know, as do Scarlets. They welcome the Lions this weekend, and I hope that they can put up a performance, but ultimately they fall 8 points short, so they don't get a bonus point. But you know, for us, I think that we need to temper our expectations a bit. I think we're two on the bounce, and people are expecting us to walk over Glasgow a bit. Glasgow are a top quality side, and that probably leads us into the next big question. Is Toby Booth has said that all internationals will be back training this week. What do we think? Do all the Welsh boys come straight back into that squad, or are we keeping some back? Yes, I'll go to you first.
I think probably most of them should be back into the fold. I think the only question mark really is Jack Morgan. I think, do you probably give him an extra week off, because we've got a lovely bit of luxury at open side flanker now, which is quite nice to have with the smaller squads. So it was probably, I think the only international I'd probably let give a bit of a rest to would probably be Jack Morgan. It would have been Adam Beard, but probably because he didn't have as much game time as I expected in the World Cup, as Gatlin did actually take him off, unlike Wing Pivac. But yeah, I think Jack Morgan probably only one. I think the rest should all come back into the fold. Obviously, there's maybe the other exception of Gareth Thomas, who could miss it this week, but might be back in the next week or so. So yeah, I think in terms of squad selection, it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of it, because there's a couple of players who really stuck their hands up, and Tipurick's going to be back, but Harry Deeves was immense on Friday night. So it's going to be interesting to see what Booth does. I hope his headache isn't that bad for the back row selection, because he's got the rest of the team to pick.
You've been engaging in some conversations on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot about this very subject. What's your view on it? Do you change the flow of the squad, or do you keep it pretty much the same? Maybe sprinkle a few back in.
It's all well and good, the Wales boys coming back in. It's fantastic because we've got strength and depth again. But going off on the last week win and the week after, a week before, like you said, they've put their hands up. They've done nothing wrong. They didn't concede at all in that second half, there was players that put their hands up and said, yeah, look at me, you might have better players in my position, but I've done nothing wrong not to play next week. I know it's Glasgow, and they got some quality players coming back, or they did have them back last week. But these young boys need to learn, and they need to be playing regular. The only one probably, I know we came on early, was Nagy. But I chuck him back in the fold at 15 because Owen Williams probably be out for a couple of weeks. So I'd have Walsh at 10, Nagy at 15. Maybe obviously Tips will be back anyway. And then the only one change I would like to see is Nicky Smith starting. Obviously he was on the bench, not last week but the week before. I'd like to see him starting, and then bring the Wales boys back in now and starting this week on the bench maybe. But credit where credit's due. These young boys who put their hands up last week don't deserve to get chucked out. They all deserve their place in the squad. And yes, Booth has got a lot to, head scratching and a lot of selection, tough decisions to call. But these young boys prove that they're worth, and they're ready to be playing week in, week out, and they've done nothing wrong for them not to be playing against Glasgow this weekend.
Respectfully, I'm going to disagree on that one. I do think that, yes, they have proven that, they beaten a very physical Sharks team with some quality players throughout, but that wasn't a full-strength Sharks team. There's no Springbok internationals, played at the World Cup in there. Glasgow have, look at their run, they've beaten Leinster. They lost to Connacht away, and they went and beat the Stormers, right? They've got their Scottish internationals back. I'm not sure whether they'll have their Argentinians back. If they do have anyone, am I thinking of Edinburgh?
Yeah, Edinburgh got them, but fairly
Edinburgh got the Argentinians. But Glasgow going to come down with a settled squad that have been together for a few weeks now. We have to be able to counter that. We have to be able to counter Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones, Darge, people like that. So I agree with you. I think Jack Morgan's the only one I probably have a bit of a question mark over. He's played a lot of rugby, more than he probably should have. Wasn't expecting to play against Portugal in the World Cup, so you may be looking at maybe not including Jack Morgan into the fold, giving him that 1 week more rest. I think Adam Beard comes back in. I love James Fender. Is he the right person to start against Glasgow? Probably not. But I do think that Adam Beard, Rhys Davis axis is one we've got to build around. James Fender called the lineup really well on Saturday, 93% lineup success rate. I just think bringing Beardy back just stabilizes that a bit more. I actually think Ethan Lewis stays in the hooker position even if Sam Harry's back. We've had no indication of how bad Spud's injury is. And Lewis Lloyd probably had his worst game off the line out on the weekend last week. I think Tips comes back in. He's had 1 week out. It's not like he's been away with the Wales squad. Probably the other question mark is, I raised this on the wrap on Monday, is does George North come back? I think Keith had a fine game, but does he keep his space over Owen Watkin, who I think is at a better overall start to the season? Probably. I think you could definitely go the Owen Watkin, George North, 12-13. And then I actually thought Fricker did really well with not a lot of ball last week. He chased kicks really well, competed great. If he's fit, I wouldn't mind him coming back into the fold with Giles or Prothero or Morgan. I think all three equally I would be happy with. The two players that definitely have to play are Walsh at 10 and Nagy at 15. Nagy and Walsh both had really good games against Glasgow last year at home. So I would like to see them replicate that performance. That in terms of bringing Wales boys back in, I do think we have to bring them back in. Yes, then how do you beat Glasgow? What do you do?
Copy and paste what we did last season and insert it into our performance on the weekend. Because last season it was quite a similar Glasgow side as well. I'm pretty sure Tuipulotu played. Ali Price definitely started because he scored a disallowed try, and the Ospreys just won. They won convincingly as well. They got the bonus point later on, and then there's a few few errors when they let Glasgow back in for a couple of tries, but at the time when the bonus point was wrapped up, it was 32-3, and you're thinking, how has Glasgow managed to display that poor of a performance with such a good side? And I think the battle of the pack is going to be interesting. There'll be quite a few internationals in there. I think if Nicky Smith starts against Sander Ferguson, that's going to be a real good tussle. And it's going to be really interesting if the Ospreys can get on top there, then and get on top of them all as well. I think it's going to be really interesting. It was last season was one of the games where Michael Collins was at 12 with Watkin at 13. I'm pretty sure North played on the wing and got a try for himself. So selection's going to be quite an interesting one. Personally, I'd probably keep the centre pairing from this week and maybe even have North on the bench. I'm not so sure. Maybe bring him on for about 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah, I think you could certainly then bring North back into the Dragons game.
It's extremely harsh to drop one of those two centres, man, because I do rate them highly.
Looking back, and I love everyone knows I love Keith, and I've known Kieran from junior rugby, and we have mutual friends. Same with Ruben. So personally, it's very hard to drop them. Owen's had a really great start to the season. 12, at 13. It's a tough one. It is a tough one.
And Owen's
But I think,
defensively sound at 13 as well.
yeah, and he's also defensive captain, it seems.
Yeah.
In terms of how we beat Glasgow last year, we got a real good parity at the scrum. I think we have to have that again. So, Darren's mentioned him before, Nicky Tombo to Ethan Lewis, probably, will start and will scrummage well.
Are we
Which is
having
when
Lake involved, or we bring him off the bench?
actually, yeah, Lake starts for me. I forgot about him.
Just wanted to double check in case.
Debbie Lake, yeah, no, differentness will be back. You can actually bring him off the bench. He's a great impact sub. So, again, really harsh on Ethan to drop him because I think he's genuinely been an unsung hero this season. Darren, any other squad predictions you think they're going to come back for the weekend? Have you heard anything on the grapevine?
I haven't heard nothing. I just, it's nice to have the Wales boys back. We've done okay without them, but they're going to add something in there. So it'll be really interesting to see what Booth goes for, and whatever he goes for, I'll be happy. Even though personally, the youngsters have done okay, but then, like we said, Glasgow are physical side. They got Hugh Jones, Ali Price, and Tuatulupu or whatever you say his name. But you need to match them, don't you? So be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, very exciting news. We're moving on to a new segment of the show, which we are calling Darren's Mailbox. Now, Darren, you run an account called True Osprey, where every week Darren will put out tweets asking for questions from Ospreys fans that they would like to answer on the show. So, Darren, you've got some questions for us.
I have indeed.
What is question one?
Well, there's 4 questions. We're going to answer them all, or answer 2?
Yeah, let's go for 4 questions. Let's go through them as we are men of the people.
They are really good questions. So the first question is, if the London game earned more for the club and more people attended the game than would have attended in Swansea, should all home games be moved to London? If not, what is I can't say the word, accessible number to be played outside the region?
Oh, good question. Now, the only reason we're playing 3 games outside the Swansea.com stadium is because the Swans, right? Let's get it out there now. We have no control over the fixture list.
And one of those 3 games has been confirmed to be played at the Swansea.com as well. I think the Lions game, which was in doubt, I think that's...
is now at Swansea.com?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So the only other one is likely to be at Bridgend, okay, which is Cardiff on New Year's Day. Okay, that is 2 games outside the region, right? Or outside of our genuine home ground. I think that as a showcase, the London one was brilliant. Okay, the timing of it was obviously all wrong. And Toby Booth said if they do it again, he'd love it to be on Saturday, right? And I would too. I think it'd be a great exhibition showcase every year to go out and do it. But definitely, if you're going to do one in London, it has to be done once a year, all right? As a showpiece thing. In terms of stuff outside the region, you've got to remember that these stadiums have to be up to a certain standard to be in URC considered, right? The Knoll is not up to standard, right? It is not a place where I think you could take a rugby team and say, yeah, this is great. It has a lot of history. It has a lot of heritage. I'm not denying that. Neath fans, don't shoot me, right? But it is not up to standard for pro rugby at the minute. Neither is St. Helens for prolonged rugby, right? St. Helens has 1 stand that is covered. And even then, that's barely covered. I stood in that stand every Wednesday for 2 years when I was at uni, right, watching the first team. The Brewery Field is the only one of the 4 that is up to standard. They won't play at Aberavon because Aberavon won't let them. Bridgend, and it's a brilliant atmosphere at Bridgend. It makes sense for New Year's Day because it's 1 stop from Cardiff, 1 stop from Talbot. It's accessible for both sets of fans, and it will be rocking, right? And it will be a great time, right? We know that the Swansea.com is too big, right? And yes, then I imagine you're going to say something similar.
Yeah, as you said, the Swansea.com is a bit too big, and unfortunately, and yeah, I think London is probably just once a season thing. If we continue it from this season, obviously the timing has been very unfortunate with all other games going on at the same time. But yeah, as you mentioned, with the other grounds around the region, I think it's important to keep in touch with the region itself. But unfortunately, we've got two grounds which aren't really up to scratch, and then you just got Bridgend as an alternative. And if the New Year's Day game against Cardiff is in Bridgend, it could be a really good atmosphere, and it could showcase what development there's rumors about developments of other grounds to be put in place and things like that. So that could give a real showcase for something like that to happen, which would mean that the Ospreys wouldn't necessarily have to play all their games in the Swansea.com, and say one day they might reach a big knockout match in Europe, which seems highly unlikely now, but you never know. It could easily work then, and having the game at the Swansea.com stadium.
Brilliant. Darren, happy with them answers?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Nice to have an overlook of what's out there, and there's options, not just why move all the games to one big city when you've got things on your doorstep that are easy accessible.
Next question.
Was the London fixture deemed a success, in brackets, off the field, and what metrics are being used to judge the answer to this?
Oh, where's Anthony Cole Johnson when you need him? He'd be the perfect man to answer that right now. But from what I could see from social media and the response from the Ospreys, it seemed like it went well. Of course, like I just mentioned just now with the timings and everything, it could have gone a bit better. And of course, I think not everything is perfect. But from what I've seen online and on socials, I think it has gone quite well. And I think there was a good turnout of South African supporters as well. So it was quite nice to have a game where there was two sets of fans in attendance. So from what I can read, it seemed like it went okay.
Yeah, I look. We don't know what metrics they're using to judge said success. There is rumors going around. I get tagged in rumors a lot in the pod Twitter account. Josh Gardner tweeted last night saying that they got a better cut of ticket prices and concession stand prices. Look, ultimately, you have got to measure it on what did we achieve. We achieved a working partnership with London Welsh. Okay, we used the clubhouse, fan zone. We look great in terms of optics for the URC. They're hosting an exhibition match with a big South African audience. Someone's personal view on whether 7,000 is an improvement or a good metric to judge that game. I look at it as we put 3,000 through the gate against Zebra, 7,000 through. It's doubled it, Yes, I think it's a success, but it's something that someone a lot more qualified needs to answer. So if we do get ACJ back on, I'd love to put that question to him going forward. Next question, Da.
Can you explain the residency rule for non-Welsh uni students studying in Wales? It's a leading question. What I'm really asking is, will someone like Max Nagy be Wales qualified?
Right. Now, I think that There has been no official confirmation around student rugby because it's whether a governing body recognises that the Bucks Super Rugby League is an elite league enough for it to be considered professional rugby, because they're not. They're not paid for it. They're still students that aren't financially stable. So technically, I can't see his 3 years at Swansea Uni counting as residency. Probably only for when he started playing for the Whites. You could argue that he would have been getting paid, and he would have been playing pro rugby. And it's also when he first would have maybe signed a contract with the Ospreys. Saying that, this is all hearsay. I do not know any of it. The other side to this argument is, does Max want to play for Wales? Right. I've had conversations with Max when I was in uni, and friends have as well who were close to him. Max is a proud Englishman, proud, Northampton boy. Whether he wants to play for Wales is completely up to him, right? That's the other side of this argument. It's all well and good. Warren Gatland could turn around and phone him and say, Max, we want you in the squad. But it's whether Max would want that for him. So in answer to the residency rule question, I am not sure, because I'm not sure whether governing bodies count Bucks Super Rugby as an elite professional or league as a professional standard. And the other point being, does Max want to play for Wales? Yes, you might be a bit more tapped into this being a uni student yourself.
Sadly, I'm not. I'd love to know the answer, and if anyone's got the answer, feel free to send us a message or ping us in a tweet if there's a definite answer out there. But if I had to give a prediction, I don't think the time in university rugby would probably count. Just a knack. I just don't think it is. I think a couple of people were replying of a tweet of mine when I spoke about Nagy on Friday night, and I think they were on about that. I don't think that his days at university do count. So I'm not sure. And as you mentioned, who knows? Max Nagy might not want to play for Wales. Of course, he grew up in the Northampton Academy. He idolised Stephen Myler, like we all do, and he might want to pursue an opportunity playing for England, like we've seen with Sam Underhill. And I apologise again, James, for mentioning that again, but it's becoming a frequency now.
Yeah, I think that sums it brilliantly. And the same will apply for Jack Walsh, by the way. Obviously, Jack doesn't qualify for a few years, but Walsh qualifies for Australia, for England, and for USA on birth grounds. So
the way Australia are going with their fly-offs, he might get parachuted next year.
Imagine that.
That'd be some shock.
Not yes then, Darren. Any other questions, or is it the one I've been sent?
No, I got one more.
Oh.
But I just want to add something in. If Nagy does play, or does want to play for Wales and he gets picked, because why shouldn't he be picked? He puts in great performances week in, week out for the Ospreys. Then who would you rather see? Would you rather see Zamet be fully converted into a 15, or would you have someone like Ewan Lloyd or something like that? I was at that Mickey Mouse game on Saturday, and obviously Kai Evans played, and he did okay from what was seen of him. But who would your 15 for Wales be for the future? Would it be Nagy? Would it be Zamet? Or would it be someone else?
I think that it all depends on the style of rugby that Gatland and Alex King want to play. I think if you go in with Kai Evans as your fullback, you are looking to play a kicking game, a heavy kicking game at that. Kai is not the paciest bloke in the world, even for a back. If you went in and you said, right, we're going to fully convert Zam, then you're probably looking to play a bit more pace and a bit more of a running game. Again, it all depends on how Alex King wants to play. I think, if Nagy did get called into the Wales squad, it'd be more of a running game, as we've seen, a bit more competing in the air, So it all depends on. I'd rather see Zam personally. That's nothing against Kai. I think Kai has his place in that squad, but if you want someone going forward, Zam probably is your way to go. As a fullback, yes. What about that spontaneous question that Darren has put on us?
Yes, it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it? Because if you look over the years, there's just been two players consistently in the 15 shirt. So now they're both gone. You think there's a bit of a scare thinking who's next. But are we going to see Tom Rogers shift to fullback? There's been mumblings of that, although I'm not sure James will agree with me on that one. But it's a real bit of a problem position. Do you call up Cam Winnett, for example, who's obviously just started out at Cardiff, and in fairness to him, he is playing very well.
He is playing very well.
And then you got Kai Evans and no, I don't think there's anyone else in Welsh qualified zone, unless you really want to push the boat out and say Johnny McNichol. But
no, that's never the answer to any question.
I don't think fullback would be a very good place to be with McNichol there. So you could even develop someone like Josh Adams, although myself, I prefer him on the left wing scoring tries. So probably, if we're looking for the Six Nations, it probably would be Zamet. And then there's plenty of options out wide. Maybe even, or you can alternate between Rogers and Zamet. Some groundbreaking rugby tactics from myself. Just have two full backs, and one of them could stay on the wing. So yeah, and another point really is the fly off position for Wales, and because Thomas Williams was ending the game there on Saturday, so hopefully Sam Costello is fully fit by the Six Nations, because otherwise we will have to get our thinking caps on.
Yes, brilliant. Yeah, that keep them coming.
This is quite an interesting one. So it'd be great to see what you two think of this question. With the way rugby union's finances are heading, the RFU predictions of a 160 million loss over 9 years, English Premiership clubs gone bust, rumours of more are near bust. Do you think our budgets being cut now, it might actually be putting our sides ahead of the curve long term? What are your thoughts on that?
I am going to find quickly a stat that Cardiff Rugby Age Grade put out a few weeks ago, that the URC teams tend to use, basically their squads are made up of academy graduates. So, Leinster obviously up there, Cardiff at 70%, Ospreys at 62, same Scat at 65.
I think the Italian sides are up there as well on that. I think it's that graph, isn't it, of percentages of
Well, you say that. Benetton are only 44%.
They signed a bunch.
Zebra was just 60%. But more importantly, the English teams are in the 40s and below. Saracens, we know Saracens Academy is very good, makes up a lot of their team. That makes up just under half of their team. But going down from there, then I'm not saying these academies are all very good. It's just clear that their squads are not made up of academy graduates. Now, what this does say is that, well, they have non-English qualified talent that make up the bulk of their squad that sit in the squad for the whole season and bolster up academy talent. Are they relying too much upon that? Where you look at the success of Leinster in the Champions Cup, not necessarily recently, but URC teams in the Champions Cup. A lot of homegrown players in there. Look at Ospreys, going up to Leicester last year. A squad made up of Swansea-born or local-born lads, a lot of which came through the academy system. Was that necessarily true for Leicester? Not particularly. There is an argument to be made that the fact that we're churning out academy graduates that then go on to play international rugby is a good thing that's keeping us ahead of the curve. But the bad thing is we're not getting results with that system currently. We don't have the non-Welsh qualified talent to bolster and aid that young squad. So whereas it's great that 60% of that squad are made up of local Swansea-born lads who came through the academy, I'd be happier at 50% with non-Welsh qualified talent that are taking us through and aiding these young players. Look at the title-winning squad we had, right? It was made up of a mixture of nationalities that helped young players like Tipperick, Alan Wynne, Fussell, Bigger, things like that. Okay, that's my take on it. Is yes, I'm happy that we've got academy graduate squad that maybe put us ahead of the curve in the future. Sean Holly said short-term pain, long-term gain. But is it sustainable in a results-driven business? Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I probably agree with you because it's nice to see all these academy graduates get game time. I've mentioned James Fender a couple of times this evening, but hypothetically speaking, imagine if the Ospreys signed Brodie Retallick from the World Cup. The Ospreys pinned up a deal to sign Brodie Retallick to come in either for a year or even 6 months, just to the end of the season, and maybe another season after that. The amount of development that he would be able to offer to someone like James Fender or to someone like Lewis Jones would develop them ridiculously quickly. And I think you probably need to just about find that balance because, you could argue over the years that all four regions might have spent a bit of cash on some players that might not have been as good as, as you mentioned, the Ospreys Galacticos side, maybe not as good as those levels. But you can't go into every game with a bunch of academy graduates with one or two internationals, or maybe a few internationals playing. You need some real experienced players. You mentioned Leicester just now, and they got two South African World Cup winners on their side. Saracens have got a bunch of English internationals, and they always had the odds player, like Will Skelton's was trotting out for them a few years ago, and you're thinking, that would be nice, but it's probably just about finding the balance. You don't want to overload with too many foreign players because you don't want a 15 just with players that have played for different nations, but you can't do the opposite as well. Have an entire squad of academy graduates, so you probably want to just try and find a bit of a balance between giving the younger players a chance, but also having the players in the squad to give them the experience.
Yeah, there's not much more we can say about that. It's a really minefield topic that dominates every Welsh team at the minute, and probably different Welsh teams have approached that a bit differently over the last couple of years. Darren, have you got another question for us?
No, I do not have another question, but I believe that you have one from the tweet you put out.
Yes, so I put out a tweet 2 days ago for any questions for the Rap podcast, and someone came back to me asking who's best placed to make the blindside jersey their own, and use some stats. So James Ratty has played 15%, 6 games at 6. Oh, sorry, 15% of his games at 6, 52% of his games at 8. Tips has played 3% of his games at 6, 97% at 7, and 1% at 8. Jack has played 13% at 6, 75% at 7, 12% at 8, whereas Harry Deebs has played all his games at 7. With the bulk of time spent in 7 and 8 jerseys, who could one special as a 6, and if so, who? So obviously we haven't had a blindside really. Lydia was in and out, having to play 7 quite a bit. Ethan Root stepped up. Obviously, he's gone. Currently, we're playing Ratty, who is probably not the most athletic 6 possible in that role. Who long term takes that 6 role for you, Darren? Who takes the blindside flanker role?
I think for a minute, I think it's Ratty. I think because, in my opinion, Tips and Jack as out and out 7s. In my opinion, but can easily slot in, and then Deeves 6 for me. But for now, I think Ratty is the man to take that jersey.
Yes.
Well, funnily enough, I actually spoke to Harley about this before the Connacht game, because he mentioned to me that Ratty was starting at 6 and Will Griff was in the second row. And especially in the Tubby booth, we've seen a lot of Will Griff at 6. And obviously Ratty started out his playing time in pro rugby as a second row before being moved to 8. So my answer would have been Will Griff as a long-term future option for the 6 shirt. I think, obviously, unfortunately, he's injured, but I think he's got that power with him as well as his line-out work. I think it would be rather, it's harsh on the open sides that we've got, but I think I'd rather have a bit of, line-out protection just in case something went wrong in the second row, and then you could easily, slot one of them back in and then bring, one of the other flankers into it. So I think personally, if everyone was fully fit, I'd probably have Will Griff at 6. But obviously people are going to disagree with that because they probably want 2 open sides, or, in one instance, you could have 3 open sides if you really wanted to be picky. But then again, you could have a handful of locks in the back row, which would mean line-out ball would be a cheat code. But I would go for Will Griff. Just, an extra line-out option is always nice. And I'm probably looking towards the future. Justin Tipurick's not going to be around forever, is he? Unfortunately, I wish he could, but he's not. So I'm probably more thinking about a Will Griff, Jack Morgan, and then one of the number 8s that's called Morgan in 8.
Yeah, it's a really tough question. I actually spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I replied to the person saying we will bring it up. The issue is the Ospreys, when Jack and Tips have been fit, don't play a system in which we have a traditional blindside. Whereas with Ratty, we probably use him as a bit more of a traditional blindside where all he does is carry and tackle, and that's it. He's not really even taking that many lineouts when Fender and Rhys Davis are taking the majority. I am a sucker for Jack and Tip starting together. I'm not saying it works in every instance. I think there are genuine times where you need a Will Griff and you need a Ratty alongside a Tips. We know who the future is. It's Jack, it's Harry, Morgan Morse at 8, Morris at 8 as well. I am really struggling in terms of, do I see us going with 2 7s, but you can't deny their quality. With Jack, you are sacrificing a lineout option, but what you get in terms of defensive ability. So you can argue that Jack plays that 6 role a bit more, just in a 7 jersey, and then Tips does the more the breakdown work. I'm really struggling on it. Personally, I'd like to see Will Griff get an injury-free run of games at 6. He really deserves it. But alas, we're not. So I think going forward, unfortunately, I think we'll just be having Tips and Morgan starting at 6 and 7. you've still got plenty of line-out options, which is why Beard comes back in, because then you've got 3 line-out options in Tipperick, Beard, and Rhys Davis. So, in answer to your question, Twitter user, I think long term, Will Griff takes that 6 jersey, and in the short term, I think we'll see Tips and Jack Morgan go through. I think that comes to the end of Darren's mailbox. I really enjoyed that, actually. So Darren will tweet out next week, a couple of days before we record. Then we'll get some more questions in. Hopefully, have some Facebook users this time as well. But other than that, gentlemen, I think that may be us for tonight. So just to recap, Glasgow at home on Saturday. I don't believe this one is on free-to-air TV. Because we've been on it the last 2 weeks. So Viaplay only this weekend. But most importantly, get down to the stadium to watch the boys. Are you going down, Darren?
I am indeed.
Yeah. Yes, Din?
I actually don't know. It's going to be close, mainly because Pontypridd are playing Swansea at 2:30. So it all depends on how quickly I can get a Toyota Ego from Pontypridd to Swansea. So if the traffic could kindly move out the way, that would be nice. But I can't see that happening. So
what time is kickoff?
2:30 for Ponty. Then I think it's 5:15.
5:15. So great kickoff time on Saturday. 5:15 at Swansea.com Stadium. Get down there, support the boys. Some other notable games that weekend. Scarlets host the Lions at the same time. On Friday, the Friday the 10th, Zebra host the Sharks in what will be a very fascinating game. I think Zebra could genuinely get their first win of the URC. And Cardiff face the Bulls on that night as well. Sunday then, Dragons will take on Leinster. Jamie, Gav, I'm sorry. That might be a tough old day at the office for you. But you can find the pod on X or Twitter at Ospreys Diary. The social media engagement has been really great this week, guys. Some really great conversations going on. So anything, you can find us there. Gents, how do we find you? Darren, where do we find you on Twitter?
At True Osprey, drop me a follow and I will follow you back.
And Yestin, where can we find your ramblings?
My ramblings, well, you have to check the Open Side blog for that. Which, by the way, I did put a piece up on the Ospreys game against the Sharks. That is a plug, so you can look at that if you want. But my Twitter is at Yestin_Thomas21. And the final thing I'll say, Ospreys by 3 on Saturday.
Oh, we haven't done our score predictions. That's right. We will do them. I completely forgot about that. Quickly, you can find me. I tweet off the Ospreys Diary Twitter account. You can try and follow me at JamesReese8 on Twitter. My Twitter is on private for job reasons. You can also find me every Tuesday morning on the Rap podcast, hosted by Lee, Jamie, Harley, and myself, where we go through the regional rugby game. Gents, very quickly, give me your score predictions on Saturday. Darren.
Ospreys by 5.
Oh, Ospreys by 5. Yes, then. You're going to go Ospreys by 2?
Ospreys by 3.
Oh, by 3. I am going to go Ospreys by 6. A lot of momentum going into this game, guys. We have such an opportunity. Big things in the pipeline. A man in the news at the minute for copyright strikes against World Rugby. Yes, that is right. The man, Squidge Rugby. We've been in contact, guys. It's happening. We're getting him on the pod. Okay, so get excited for that. Anything you'd like to see from us 3, please drop us a tweet. We love the interactions. But other than that, we will see you same time next week, where hopefully we'll be talking about a 3rd win on the bounce before we go into the Welsh derbies. So this has been the Ospreys Irie podcast. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Ospreys Irie podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.